Okay. Okay, well, thank you for sticking around for the conference this late. I know everyone's trying to get out of here. It's the last session of the day. I appreciate everyone coming. My name is Jamie Butler. I'm the Director of IT for the University of California at Davis School of Law. And this is Ed Henn. He's a programmer in the IT department at the law school. And we're going to talk to you today about engaging the law school applicant through online services. And we built a number of services for the law school applicants so that they can kind of follow through and stay engaged and part of the admissions process and know what's going on with the status of their application and kind of just feel like they're part of the process instead of just waiting to hear an answer. So we're going to quickly just kind of give you a brief overview of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to explain what the problem is, why this process and these applications are important for us, and what we did to sort of solve the problems that we're faced engaging our applicants. And then we're also going to talk about a new system called ACES 2, and sort of why the reasons we did the things that we've done and how things are going so far, and maybe some suggestions for improvement in the future.
So whenever we start a new project like this, one of the first questions we ask is, like Jamie said, what is the problem we're trying to solve? And in this case, there are really two groups of people who we're trying to please, essentially. Of course, primarily there are the applicants, and what applicants want is they want all the information that they can get, and they want it, of course, as soon as they can possibly get it. So as soon as they submit their application, they may want to know, have we received it? Did we get everything we need? They want to know when we might make a decision. If we've made a decision, they want to know right away. So they actually also they can get resources on our campus once they've been admitted, and they want to know about that right away. They want to have access. They don't want to have to wait for it. So there are a number of things we can do to provide online so that things are sort of streamlined for them. In addition to providing them with information, we want to give them the ability to provide us with information. Like, for instance, they've moved. We want to get an address change from them. We can get that in a standardized format. And as well as for the students who are admitted, they can tell us whether they're coming or not. So in that way, we keep in touch with them and can communicate with them on a regular basis and make it easy to do.
The admissions office is also, in this sense for us, is the client. And they want to reduce the number of phone calls that they receive from applicants. And I think our admissions office spends 3/4 of their time between October and June just fielding questions from applicants and trying to stay ahead of the curve while doing all the other work in the background. And so reducing the number of phone calls they received was probably their #1 priority. They also wanted to improve and streamline the process so that they were doing their work more efficiently. They didn't have to spend time doing duplicate information and answering the same questions for every single application. And we get 3,000, 4,000 applications, and to answer that same question about when are you going to know gets pretty repetitive and isn't a very good use of their time. They also wanted to have a flexible way of communicating with the students, to let them know what's going on about updates, open houses, and things like that, that instead of having to send emails out to everybody, we wanted to create kind of a one-stop shop where students can just get all that information. And they wanted to keep the students interested in the law school, not just to apply and forget that they applied to UC Davis and go off to some other school or go about their lives, but to actually remain engaged in the process and to want to continue to come back, to be excited about the law school, to learn what's going on, to see the different things, and really stay excited about it. And one new thing we started this year was a seat deposit. And we wanted to require a payment from the students to ensure that they're going to come. And everyone knows that getting a concrete answer from a law school applicant can be very, very difficult. But when you start putting dollars on to that answer, it gets a little bit closer to the actual numbers you're going to see at the end of the year. And so we require a seat deposit. And that was something that they wanted to do as part of this entire process. And they were concerned about taking checks because a student can apply, cancel their check, and by the time we're a part of a major, the bigger, greater university, by the time that check would get back to us, it might be October. So a canceled check doesn't do anything for us. It doesn't really hold their seat. and we don't know about it, and it really affects our numbers at the end of the year. So they wanted to do real-time credit card authorization, get the money, know the student's going to be there.
So we can take you on a quick demo, little tour of the site. This is actually the live site, not just a demo. Our homepage here, the status check website. And we sort of maintain just a test account so that we can go in and make sure that things are working.
The nice thing, what we tried to do is we have this information about the students. You know, they apply and they're going to give us their email address, they're going to give us their mailing address, and so what we did was that we set up their login to be the email address they provided us. And so it's really seamless for the user to log in, and if they don't know their password, they can go in and the system will create one for them on that home screen.
Right. We wanted to make the registration just as simple as possible. So I can take you to maybe the first place they might be interested in going if they've just applied. This lists the date that we've received the application, and then there are actually a pretty large number of supporting documentations that we need from them, and we can tell them here, here's the list of those things, here's the things we've gotten from you, here's the things that we have yet to receive, so that,
So that's documents received, documents missing, okay, and that's for the particular person.
This is for the applicant who's logged in.
The individual applicant, and that's from their application.
Now, how do you know, do you send them an email to say, we received your application, come to our site and
There's a packet.
log in and we're going to find you the information?
There's a standard packet from admissions for everyone who applies. And so they just basically inserted another sheet in there saying, hey, by the way, go visit this site. So again, this is just some detailed information on what's missing. The applicant comes here, they'll know, oh, I forgot to send X, or have to make sure that they receive this before we'll start processing it. Along the way, as their status might change, there's some different, this is the only dynamic text on here, down here, the current status. It may be, yes, we've just received your application and we're waiting for more documentation. Or there might be, we've just completed your application, please give us a couple of weeks. So there's just some dynamic text that goes in here based on what their individual status is for this applicant.
And that's updated on real time?
Every day.
Yeah, that comes from the admissions department. As they're making decisions.
As they're doing the back end and doing all of that, that's just real time?
Yep.
It's a daily process. We
Okay.
dump it. Doesn't go directly into the application, the applicant database.
So if they can see the decision letter there?
We do provide the decision letter. So once that was, give me my next talking point.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. No, that's perfect. We'll go ahead and click on it. This particular applicant has been accepted. Did I miss? There we go. So we do, of course, mail the letter, and this is an unofficial letter, but it's the same exact letter they're going to get.
Did you run into a problem, like right now, because I am trying to get them to do this because that's what the students want.
Yeah.
But we want the personalization of the letter. And
We've done
It
that.
is, it's that letter.
well, I know, but they want it like in the mail, opening. I mean, I'm with you all, so
Well,
it's.
They still get that.
Did you
We do
run into
both.
that at
We
all?
do both. So the student's still going to get that signed letter from the dean that says, "Welcome to UC Davis School of Law." But students sometimes they want to know right
And
away.
yeah,
And
that's
so
what all of our
Well, and
applicants
also
are
students
asking
are
for.
sometimes, they're in Africa,
Yeah.
they're in,
Yeah.
I mean, they're all over the country.
Right.
So they're not going to necessarily, the letter may be going to
their
their
parents' home.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I would think this would make sense from admissions for the admissions people too.
It's a nice addition to the standard way of getting them their application and their information about their decision.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of how to keep it.
Well, I think part of it is when people aren't, at
They're not where
school,
they were, yeah.
they're not necessarily, right
No.
there, and then the mail could take 2 weeks.
It could take a while.
Where you are and where it is, it takes a long time.
And they want to know, they want to know right away.
And also you want the admissions, from your school known as quickly as possible, so they can say no thank you to other schools, and, become
We
more
want them to come
engaged
to
with
us,
you.
yeah. And one thing we did do on this, because obviously it's an unofficial letter, it's not signed, it doesn't have the signature block on it, but it does let them know, and it does give them the text of the letter they received. The idea then is they can't take it and print it out and say, hey, look, or get their buddies.
But if they don't receive the letter for any reason, they can call up and say,
So another piece that we talked about having them keep in contact with us as well. this personal information tab has their address. Here's what they provided to us on their application. Please update it for us if you've moved. And this is really simple. This is just essentially an email form. All this does is just formats an email and sends it to admissions. So it does just save a step, though, and there's nobody who's going to wonder how to let us know. It's right here. They can see it, and it comes in a standard format for the admissions department. They then validate that, put it back into the admissions database, and the next time the student comes, we have the new information there to show them that we've been updated.
You see on the right-hand side, there's a yellow block, and we try to keep the information that students are going to want. And obviously, they're coming here for the quick answer: did I get accepted? And do you have everything you need for my application? But there are other things that they may want to, they're interested about, whether or not we have a laptop requirement. And that may be something that it's probably in 17 other places on the website, but we just try to consolidate things for them so that they can get answers to all their frequently asked questions, they can understand a little bit about the process, and all that's right there for them.
Do you also have, because there are a lot of times there's specific questions for students that you want them to tell you more about their arrest record, or you want them to tell you more about something else. Does that show on here?
There's nothing like that.
If it's something that specific, I think the admissions committee would contact that individual applicant.
Okay, so they won't see that we're,
Yeah.
Okay. So this is just the basic stuff, not anything.
Yeah, anything really involved, they're going to want to talk to the person, I think.
No, I understand that, but if I were a person coming on and I, somehow, on my status is, you need to contact the admissions, department because there's a question about something. That would at least alert the person that there is a problem they're trying to contact you if they, you have.
There may be something to talk to them about.
Yeah,
that
that's
hasn't
not a
come
bad
up yet
idea
for us specifically, but that may be something. We're talking about feature enhancements for the next
Right.
revision of this. That may be something that comes up down the line that we may want to talk about.
Well, there are several other things over here. An information sheet, definition of terms, those are similar pop-up windows. Those are generic, not personalized. And then one other section that I skipped. This is what they see when they very first log into it. It's really just kind of a blog-like feature. The admissions director can type in a paragraph or two. It starts out with a welcome letter. It sorts from top to bottom. So they see the very latest one. The rest of these are clickable, but the top one is the one that shows by default. And this gives the director a chance. There's some kind of boilerplate stuff that she'll do, but she'll also get maybe 20 phone calls in a day, and they're all asking the same question. And she'll have this, put an update up here that says everybody seems to be asking this question, and she can inform everybody of whatever it is.
Do you do something like put an RSS feed so that people could?
No, we don't have an RSS feed on here. That's not a bad idea. Okay. I think we covered everything in here. Sometimes our admissions people get a little bit verbose to put a whole lot of text here describing how to interpret the current status. And she just feels like that gives her a way to keep them as informed as possible and essentially keep them off of the phone to her.
And the last tab is, if all else fails, we haven't answered any of your questions or all of your questions by now. Now you can contact us and send us an email or call us on the phone. But our hope is that by the time you get to that part, obviously it's the last tab too. So by the time you get to that part, all of your questions have been answered already, and you don't have to get a phone call.
Are financial aid awards communicated through the webpage as well?
So we're going to talk about the next step, which is we've done the status check website, which allows applicant to see whether or not they've been admitted or not. And once a student, if they get to that part where it says you've been admitted, then they progress to the next level. Same credentials, same authentication mechanism, but now we consider the admitted students website. And it has a completely different set of features geared towards the law school admitted student.
So this contains a lot more information, like Jamie was saying. What we tried to do here was we did develop some new things, within IT, like for instance the seat deposit. But a lot of the content that's in here is either stuff that some of it was existing already, existing static content that they want to get out to all of the people who are admitted. Some of it is new stuff that was developed not by us but by admissions. Things like advice from other students that we think are pretty nice features. We just included them along into the same framework. So this wasn't something we had to develop everything from scratch. A lot of it is just consolidated and make it a one-stop shop. So as we said, it's the same login, so if they know the status check, they don't have to do anything new. They don't have to register again. Other kind of general information we provide here, there are events that are happening at the law school, some of which they're going to want to attend, deadlines for things like paying, and let's see, videos. I've lost them, but at some point in here there are videos that they can watch of events that happen at the school that they may either want to attend or
We hold open houses in the spring,
Right,
and
open house.
all the admitted students are encouraged to attend an open house. But in the event they can't make it, we record the open houses and then put them back on the site so they can go watch them.
Can you click on your housing tab?
Sure. Some of this is, again, general information, external sites that have information, and then, again, a really simple form for them to, this is just an email to the admissions department, but it lets us know that they want to do some kind of coordination with other students. Either they have a house or they want to share a house.
Do you know how the admissions office then gets that information out? Do they just send an email to those people?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay.
we hand that off to them, and then I'm not sure how they
I don't
coordinate
know, yeah.
with the people afterwards.
Yeah. So there's a good deal of information in here, actually.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff is collected information from various different websites on all over the campus, and we tried to consolidate it so that the student can go to one place and they don't have. We don't say go to this link to find the information there, and then go to this link to find the information here. They can just go to our site, get everything they need, and then leave. And then we're not sending them all over the place trying to find things when they get lost.
So here's one that I really like, that, again, we didn't come up with this. This was straight out of the admissions department. This is a couple different collections of advice from existing students. So the majority of this here is, these are different quotes from students saying, here's what I wish I knew when I was in your shoes. So you can click on any of these and it gives just advice directly from the people who they're going to want to hear from the most. Here are the problems that I had. Here are the things that I wish I had done differently. And then as well as that, there are 4 students who agreed to blog their entire first year. Every week or two they give an update, and this information then basically gives them like day in the life snapshot, and they can continue to read how these people experienced law school here. What were the difficulties? What were the things that were not as hard as they thought? And again, it's quite a bit of information, and they've kept it up to date.
Did the students volunteer to do that, or were they remunerated by
I think the admissions department contacted a couple of students at orientation, or kind of put a call out for them, and they selected 4 students, and I believe the compensation was a gift certificate to the bookstore.
Oh.
So for their contributions over the course of the semester, they got a $500 gift certificate to the bookstore, and offset the cost of their books.
So since we don't have a login for this, we can't go back home and look on the web and see all this
You
stuff?
can. What we did was, I don't think we posted it yet, we kind of put a rough outline on the wiki for
Oh, okay.
the presentation.
Mhm.
But when we're done here, we've done snapshots of all the pages for you,
Okay.
and we'll put them back up on the wiki so you can see each page and how everything looks. It won't allow you to interact with it, but at least you can kind of get an idea, again, of what everything looks like.
See the screenshots. Yeah.
Yes?
For the seat deposit, I'm assuming you're going through some credit card processor, and there's
That's right.
several dollars that's lost there to the credit card
A
processor.
percentage is
Who
free.
needs that? What department needs that? Because that's our dilemma right now.
We do, and
The
we
IT
figured,
department?
well,
No.
so the admissions department eats that fee. There's a general accounting, the way it works is the general ledger for the admissions department is placed for the accounting processing charges, but then the money that comes in also goes to their account. So when students pay a deposit but don't come, we collect that money and use that to defray the cost of the credit card processing for the rest of the students. And we figured it out. There was 12. We needed 12 students to not come and pay the deposit to offset that 2.5% charge, and we hit that already.
we hit that pretty early on. It's not unusual.
You'll quickly get, when you we set our first deposit deadline of April 15th, and a lot of students are on waiting lists for other places, perhaps, but they're not quite sure, so we made a lower dollar amount, but it's still enough for it to sting a little bit that they left. And then there's a larger fee that was due June 15th, and that one, people probably won't leave on that one. But it gives them 2 chances, so they can say, okay, I do want to come here, but they find out 2 months later they got accepted someplace else they really, really wanted to go, then they got financial aid someplace else where that $250 loss really isn't a big deal because they're getting a full ride to another school, then they can walk away. But we do get that money then, and we keep it and use that to defray the cost. So it has
credit
worked
card
out.
payment is mandatory.
It
Credit
is.
card payment for this is mandatory, yeah. You can pay.
What about the second deposit?
Both, they're both. They both get paid through the system. We'll go over that in a second.
So they can't send a check at all?
Cannot.
No.
No. That was a choice of our admissions director. She, discussed with a number of the other UC schools. All the schools, I think, I believe all the UC law schools now are charging a seat deposit. And her concern was that because it takes so long to get notice of a canceled check back from our central accounting office, that it really wasn't going to provide her with an accurate count. So the credit card processing was the only way to get the money that day and ensure that that student is locked in.
Do you allow PayPal for those who are credit card averse?
We do not. The thought was that if any student didn't have a credit card and wasn't able to have a credit card or use a credit card, they could go to the local grocery store and buy one of those prepaid visas and put the $250 on the prepaid visa and use that for the payment. And you can get those pretty much everywhere.
So we also provide the address update. This is the same feature that was on the status check, just to give them every opportunity to keep in touch with us about where they are. Here is the seat deposit form. This also incorporates a feedback mechanism for when they very first log on. All this text is hiding. It just says either you're going to accept or you're going to decline. So they can tell us here if they decline the offer of admission. That hides that section, and they can give us a feedback on why they're doing that, whether they might apply next year because they're just waiting, or here's the other school that I've decided to go to. And this again is just a simple email form.
You asked a question about financial aid. At the top of this page, you see the student ID number, and the student ID number is required to obtain your financial aid package. And the financial aid awards are given through another university service that's sort of outside of the realm of the law school itself. I mean, we have a financial aid person that works in the law school that does the awards, but then all of that processing gets done external to us. So we provide them with their student ID number there, and that student ID number, now that they're an admitted student, provides them with the ability to check their financial aid and begin the process of actually becoming a student.
They get
all the services they need.
Right, other campus resources as well. This student ID allows them to get their email, other accounts on campus. And then there are links here. I believe this page is internal to our student site, but then contains links out to the financial aid group that they have to talk to in order to accept their aid.
So the one thing we did have a question about was what happens when a student pays a $250 deposit and then they get a financial aid that covers their entire tuition. And we did address that. It was a concern going in. Why should I have to pay $500 or $250 when I have a free ride? And they pay that up front once their financial aid gets applied to their account and they register for classes and show up. Then the university issues a credit and sends them a refund check. So they don't lose the money. It's just basically a way to get them to come in the door.
So then for the seat deposit, this is where we, like you mentioned, we have to go through essentially a gateway. And Central Campus provides that for everyone, and they obviously require everyone to use it who's going to be collecting credit card information. This is a good thing. We don't want to.
We're in a different boat. Our campus is not doing any credit card processing online, so we're kind of leading the way. And answering all these questions like who's going to eat the fees, what account is this money going to go into, things like that. How do you reconcile it?
Well,
All the questions we have to answer.
not only that, but you have to follow all the regulations and send in the paperwork when you PCI that you have to follow. We don't have to do any of that, luckily.
That was the campus decided to, in order to minimize our risk and our exposure to potential problems with credit card authorization, they centralized the entire payment gateway process. And so we just hand the user off to the gateway, and they come back. And so we kind of offload all that risk onto the central service, that's their job. They just manage that payment gateway, and they comply with all the regulatory standards that they need to. We tried to make this payment system relatively transparent and simple for the user. So they walk into this website, and they don't have to go through a whole bunch of stuff. We already know their name and their address, so we don't have to ask them any more questions other than, what's your credit card number? So they come to this page, and they can see that they've got deposit 1, which is due April 15th, and then deposit 2, which is due June 15th. You can't pay your second deposit without paying your first one. And we've tried already to pay a deposit. You can see that we had an incomplete transaction.
So this is just if they decided to cancel, they bailed out. This tells them what their last status was. And so the programming part on our side, we do have some work to do here, but it is pretty minimal. When they click the button, essentially we're recording in our own local database that there's a transaction pending already now. And what's happening here is there's essentially an iframe that says, go out and load the payment gateway, and now everything they do inside here has nothing to do with us. We're not receiving that traffic at all. So they go through, pay their credit card or don't. Maybe they hit cancel. Maybe they just abandon the browser. And then at some point after, I think there's a 10-minute timeout, the payment gateway will let us know what happened. Like if they cancel or pay right away, it lets us know right away. But if they abandon the session, it still lets us know again. So I've hit cancel here. Go back to the response. It didn't load. There we go. Now you can see I had an incomplete transaction as of today. If you do complete the transaction, pay the fee, they get an email gets sent to them. That's automated. And also they'll see their receipt information here. In case they lose the email, they can always come back and see the reference number in case they need to call us for whatever reason.
After you pay the first deposit, that option goes away, and now you have the option to pay that second deposit now. We obviously haven't completed the transaction, so we want to keep it open.
Yeah, and some of them did say, you're the only law school we apply to. They just pay them both right away, and then they're done.
So I want to talk a little bit about ACES 2. If you're not familiar with ACES 2, ACES is the current program that LSAC is using to transmit applicant data down to the law schools for processing. And you take that data out of ACES 2 transfers it into Mid-Am. That process is going away, and I'm not sure what the timeline is. We're currently beta testing ACES 2, which is the second version of ACES. It eliminates a Mid-Am and does everything in one online system. So the applications get transferred in the background into your online web UI, and the application is relatively straightforward for the admissions department to view, make decisions, and keep track of applications. We've been beta testing that for the past 2 years, and it's that system that we've used to feed all of the data for our system. So all of this data exchange happens transparently to the admissions department and transparently to the applicant in the background using web services from ACES 2 to our system. And the benefit is that the admissions department doesn't have to do anything special. They continue to use the same application they're comfortable with, they've been using for the past 2 years. They make their decisions, they do whatever they need to do with the file processing piece, and then the data transparently every night gets loaded into our system.
So I can show you one example of that. If we go back to the status check, I can't actually load ACES 2 from here. I don't want to be showing student records online, but I do have a screenshot. So this first page I showed you with this documents received, documents missing, application received, date. This information comes from a screen that looks like this. I don't know how many people have seen ACES 2. All of these, summary status, LSDAS, that's all tabs that relate to this individual student. This is just one small section of the screen. It's actually rather large that you can open and close each of these little boxes. And this group of checkboxes in here is a user-definable set of things for for the admissions department to say, here are all the things we require, and then check it if they've given it to us, don't if they haven't. So this goes into the ACES2 database. We pull the data out and feed this form, as well as actually a lot of other information from ACES2.
And the reason we do nightly, you asked about the real-time data. Our admissions department actually did not want to have real-time data because they're working with the application throughout the day. They may make several changes to it, and then virtually they close it at the end of the night and they go home. And so when they essentially close the application for the night and stop working on it, that's when we take our snapshot. And so we're not getting halfway in between changes they're making during the day. We just get the final version at the end of the night. And we take that and load this every night programmatically.
I think we offered them and initially did a download at noon. And they said, just please don't do that anymore. So.
Yeah, because it could change, something could happen between 10 o'clock and 10 o'clock, and the
right.
candidate's not going to go back, so they assume everything
Right.
was.
They could be still in process working on that applicant when we do the download. So another thing to note about ACES2 is that they actually, I think, once we were pretty much done with our online status check, they released their own, and it's integrated into ACES2. It really is, it's pretty, it's like a 1.0, maybe a 0.9. They just started doing it. So we did actually look at it. We thought it was worth at least seeing what they do. They do provide some of the same information we do, letters of recommendation, all the contact information, and it is real time. It does go.
So this is what, if the student goes into LSAC, this is what.
If we enable the LSAC's status check.
Yeah, this is done. This would come out of our app. Essentially, our admissions department would enable this functionality for students to be able to log in and check on their own.
It's pretty much everything would be here in yours. So
yeah, everything that there's one thing that we don't give them, I think.
The mailings we don't have, but just because admissions either didn't ask or hasn't noticed yet, they may ask us to include it.
And we looked at this as they were kind of finishing up and decided that even though they were doing this functionality for us, and it was obviously much easier just to buy into what's already given to you, they don't give you all of the features that we were looking for. And it's not, this isn't customizable by us. This is what LSAC gives us. And it doesn't also have all the information about the other services that are offered at the law school that we want to engage them in.
Well, if you're trying to engage them, then you want them on your site with your brand and.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. But this would come with ACES2 then.
This would come with ACES2 out of the box functionality, and they'll probably continue to enhance this a little bit as people make requests.
Right, because ACES2 is going to come out over a couple of years. I mean, people are going to be.
Yeah, rolling into it. Yeah.
We moved to earlier this year.
Did you?
How's your adoption going?
I haven't got a single call about it yet.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad we paved the way for you then, because
Yeah, so you guys are all instances, so you've got two parallel databases, or how does that
No.
work?
we're full bore in ACES2. We got
It's-
rid of the mid-M 2 years ago.
Yeah, right away.
Oh, okay.
We beta tested live.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we over the summer 2 years ago, we made the decision to use ACES2. LSAC made the commitment to support us and work with us to make sure that everything worked for us, and they've done a wonderful job. I mean, the problems that we have encountered throughout the process, they addressed for us and got things going. So it was a rocky road at first, but things are going much smoother now, and our admissions department loves ACES2. So if that's any.
Thank you guys for being
Sure.
Hopefully that's helps out a little bit.
I think another thing that we helped with was we may have been, and we weren't the only, but we were probably the first ones to get the option to house the server in our server room. Mostly ACES2 customers are hosted by LSAC. I think initially when they were telling us years ago that it was coming down the pipe, they said, if you took this option to get it in your server room, you could have direct access to the data. We have programming staff, so we liked that idea a lot. But then when they came and dropped the box in our room, they said, no, that doesn't happen. So we hounded them a little bit, saying, how are you going to solve this problem for us? We need to get our data out somehow. They do provide, reports. The reporting system is pretty nice, but then it's all manual. So fairly recently, maybe about 6 months ago, they released this web services piece that Jamie mentioned. It's not 100% perfect. It's not probably what I would have dreamed of having. It doesn't provide direct access into the database, but it lets you run any of the reports that you have and extract them down to essentially flat files in many different formats. So any report that you can get out of ACES2, you can automate now through the web service.
And that was, I think, mostly in direct response to our need to get the submitted students and status check websites live. We had been, prior to that, running a manual process of running the report through ACES and then downloading it to a flat file manually, uploading it periodically. And everyone knows that just is ridiculous.
There were lots of steps, lots of babysitting. So one of the things we really wanted to do for ourselves was just automate everything that we could do. So
I know there's one administrator in the admissions department that loves us now because she doesn't spend about a half an hour every day uploading a new file.
Right.
So we talked about why we didn't use the ACES2 status check, and automating everything is really wonderful. But we helped out our clients. I think most importantly ourselves. We didn't even think about this at the onset, but if you think of ourselves as a client of not having to do miscellaneous repetitive work, we saved ourselves a lot of time. Training people to download that file. When we had staff turnover, we had to explain the whole process again and then think, hey, how did that work? So it was much nicer to automate everything and just have things happening seamlessly in the background.
So we got good results. We also asked the admissions director to provide us with just sound bites for what she thought of the system so that we could tell you. And we feel like she got good results as well. She feels like she's able to much more quickly address issues that the applicants have, put it up on the website for them to see right away. She feels like the number of phone calls has dramatically gone down, so that's a good thing. That was really one of her primary concerns. We love and she loves it that the applicants can get the information wherever they are. It's on the weekend, in Africa, whatever, they can get to it. This is the thing I actually really like that she said. She said she's finding new uses for it every day. So that's actually maybe more work for us, but I feel like it's a good thing. She likes the system. We've built a good framework that works for her. So it's been a tremendous help to her. Those are her words. So we feel like we did a good job with that. So now we can talk about problems, I guess, that we've had. We did run into a few issues. One of the things is I mentioned the ACES2 web service. It's really not perfect. It does give you flat files. It is a relational database that dumps flat files out at you. So as soon as we started adding more and more information, like you can see these letters of recommendation over here, that's relational data. So this is not really a big deal to solve that problem, but it was something that we didn't consider initially because we were just getting a flat dump, put it into our database, and just read it out. So create another table now that relates that information, because if you pull it all out into Excel, then you get, if an applicant has 3 recommenders, then their applicant data is duplicated all those times in the flat file that comes out. So we have to pull out, I think we're pulling out 3 separate downloads that are just scheduled one after the other, and then they go into the separate tables that are related to the applicant table.
We use the applicant's email address as their login, and we didn't think about, maybe a student wants to change their email address. They want to stop using their undergraduate email address and begin using a private one, or a Hotmail or Gmail or Yahoo account. And so that was something that wasn't built into the system. It was a simple change to allow that, and a student can update their email address in the system, but then the next time they log in, they have to remember that they have to log in with that new email address, and they have to request a new password to link the account together. So I think we need to make that a little bit more seamless for them in the future. That was something that was, you just don't think about students changing their username for a system like that.
Yeah. And then the other thing that happened that was probably the biggest deal was the way that the payment gateway works is that it's asynchronous. Obviously, we just hand them off, and we have no idea if we're going to hear back, or if we do, when it's going to happen. So one of the things that happened early on was that a student would go out, try and make their payment. Something happened, I don't know what happened, and then they come back to our site, and they're not sure whether they succeeded or not, so they go try again. So there was a double payment. And that was luckily noticed right away on the same day. We're able to, through the payment gateway, we can log into an administrative interface and just verify that that's what happened and refund that money, and then that same day change our system so that the sort of pending transaction that I mentioned, as soon as they click the button, we record our pending transaction, and then just don't let them do anything if there's a pending transaction. So that keeps the double payments from happening. And then it also generates a little bit of work when there's the occasion, maybe once every few weeks, where somebody just for whatever reason won't get the call back from the payment gateway, so if their pending transaction is sitting there, we won't let them do anything. And I do have to go in and manually clear that out. I just go verify what happened inside the sort of financial report on the gateway, make sure that's what really happened, and then go clear it out.
We do have a couple of planned improvements for the system, and probably a whole slew of unplanned improvements that we'll be doing throughout the next year. I said our admissions director continues to find new uses for the system every day, and we try to encourage her to make a list instead of every 5 seconds sending us an email. But she's been really helpful about finding good ways to really engage the students. But we're definitely going to. Right now, we're issuing the students a password. So they go into the system and say, my email address is this, mail me my password so I can log in. And we use a password generator that creates a relatively secure but awful password for the students to remember. And so what we're going to do is probably augment that system so that it allows the student to then go back in and change their password if they want to. Then we'll reverse hash the password and store it in the database for them. We also, there are a couple of times, on rare occasions, that the admission staff is talking on the phone to somebody, they're having a problem, and they can't see what one particular applicant sees in the system. So we're going to build an administrative interface for the admissions department to log in and impersonate a user. So they can go in and see exactly what that student's seeing, walk them through any problems, and go, oh yes, that is an issue, or this is why you're seeing this, and kind of troubleshoot questions without having to call us, because we're trying to reduce the number of calls we get as well.
Right, because that is a call, that's probably the most frequent call I get. It doesn't happen a ton, but that's the one I get the most. Hey, can you just tell me this person's password so that I can go log in and check and see what because they won't tell me exactly what it looks like. So make this improvement, that'll just streamline it that much more for them. So another thing that would be a good improvement, or it's at least a potential improvement, we're not sure whether we'll do it, but the applicant status inside, essentially we talked about ACES2, we talked about our local database. There's another database, which is the campus student information system. Our campus uses Banner. All of our applicants have to go there. So there is a manual process right now where I have to go into ACES2. As soon as the person's folder is complete, application's complete, I load them into Banner. And that's really the only way for them to get campus resources. That's how they get that student ID. So after I load them and their status is changing, I still have to go in, load them again to do an update to their status. So once they get the final admitted status, it really doesn't help them until I've run a status update manually in Banner to say, yeah, this person really is admitted, and then they're allowed to get their financial aid, et cetera. So one thing that would probably be a good idea is somehow within this system, as soon as we've done an update from ACES2 to our local database, we notice people have the correct status to be admitted, and they've paid both of the deposits, we can immediately generate a batch to go out to Banner and update them. So that it would be a few less steps. I still have to run the batch manually, but it would at least get rid of the need for me to go and check whether there's anybody who needs this status updated for themselves.
And even to take a step further, if we, I'm pretty sure we can programmatically interface the Banner system, assuming we get some support from the central campus.
Right.
And they've been really, really great about helping us with this. But we should be able to then even take it a step further and have the system automatically tie into Banner. The second a student makes their payment, they can kick off the process of getting them actually enrolled. And so they can, that day, get their email account, go get their library card, and start becoming a student.
And we did actually get very good support from them. They helped us with the seat deposit application. one part that has to happen when the applicant pays the amount. They have to be in Banner already, and we have to make sure that Banner knows that that student paid that amount, because Banner is where all of their fees go. So the way to get the dollar amount tied to the student didn't really exist, and our campus registrar had to develop a stored procedure for us to call, go through testing, etc. And we were able to get that to work. So now we have a process that's not quite real time, but I think we update it every 5 minutes. If there's been a payment, it's now updated in the system.
So there's a couple of other things it's pretty much a high-level, relatively system overview of everything we've done. We can get into very technical detail if you'd like. I don't know if anyone's interested in it. We've got kind of a workflow of how the data moves through the system, and procedurally as well as manually with student interaction. We can talk about the actual flow of information, or the money transfer between the student and the payment gateway and back and forth, and how that ties with student accounting. Or we can just put that information up and you can look at it.
I think we've sort of talked in bits and pieces about most of these parts. This is designed in sort of 3 separate areas. These are actions that are scheduled over here on the left. Those are just the automated processes that get all the data to where it needs to go. Actions that IT has to perform, these are ones that are manual. And on the right, those are just a highlighted couple of user actions that can happen, how the deposit happens, and then the fact that they get information out of our local database, and when they pay, they're talking to the external gateway. So if there's any questions or about any of the technical details, like I said, we can go through any of that if people are interested.
Or you can email us too.
Yeah.
All our contact information is on the wiki.
No, I skipped actually one slide. There's a couple of reports that have to happen when the students pay. There's essentially a nightly report that has to go to student accounting, again, outside of the law school. We have to tell them, here are all the people we think paid, and they have to do a balance sheet to say, make sure that money is in Banner and got to the right place. So that's all been automated. We also provide our admissions department with we have an intranet, so they can log onto the intranet in admissions and say, let me see who paid today, or let me get information on who still hasn't paid anything. So this is a screenshot. I've taken out the names, but these links at the top show you all the different reports we can get. Most of these are for admissions. A couple of them are for me to see if there's somebody stuck in the system. There's a count over here. If someone has a missing student ID, they're not going to get very far through this system, so I have to take care of it. I've also just added in the past couple days a paid in full, because there are those 2 separate payments, and at some point this became less helpful to the admissions director because there wasn't just a list of the people who were really, really coming. So that's been added now. And then, yeah, unless people want to go through any technical details, I think that's
Anybody have any questions
legit.
about the system at all?
Is this going to be up on YouTube?
I will put this on the wall.
Any questions? Well, thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, thanks.
How long did it take y'all to develop that?
Well, there was a couple of different stages. The status check website, I think, I spent about 1 sleepless week. And the admitted student site was done in phases where we added most of the functionality and then kind of redid it, and then did the payments, the online payments separately.
Yeah, the seat deposit we added in, I think it was 3 weeks, a couple of weeks. But a lot of that was just trying to organize the 3 different places on campus we needed to talk to and getting things through.
A lot of it was 5 weeks of politics and 5 hours of programming.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we have a really great campus CIO who's been very supportive of all the academic units. And so working through his office and kind of identifying different key players that we needed to meet with and the project managers was very helpful. And so I encourage you, if you have that relationship with your campus CIO, or if you're an independent unit and you can do it on your own, But that was really helpful to kind of talk with them and tell them what we needed to do, that this was happening, and get their assistance with it.
Have you thought about allowing discussion forums or something between students who are admitted?
We have. The admissions director doesn't want to do that, mostly because she doesn't want to moderate it. They don't want an admitted student who's decided that they didn't get enough financial aid to complain in that kind of medium, and then have someone that really does need to pay attention to it and moderate that kind of information. So rather than go through that headache, they just said, nah.
We're exploring using Ning for that. There's actually a lot of schools that, mostly undergraduate that I found, that do a Ning site for admitted students, you know.
What's
And
it
that
called
way,
Ning.
N-I-N-G. And what's nice about it is that it's sort of Facebooky, as it's like you invite people to join it, so it's not everybody can join it. But they can go on there and they can take the initiative themselves on housing, or, you know, who's explored what. And but then you can also put up some of the nice stuff like videos or photos, or maybe have one of your already enrolled students. But I'm still working on getting that. But it's the only thing I found about building our own that allows us to do everything they've asked me for. So if they don't want to do that.
I think their thought was to encourage students that they're motivated enough to do that on their own, so that it wasn't a law school sponsored system. And that way.
That's why we were moving towards that, is because they already did it on their own. We want to bring it toward the other arts.
And our current students actually wanted it internal to the law school, not the admitted students, but the ones who are here already. So we did just develop a forum on the intranet so they can sell textbooks, find housing, etc. for their next year. So.
Well, thank you very much. Have a safe trip home.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. So I've forgotten where the button is to upload file. I'll just put the slides up there right now. Put the other ones up, but I can't remember where to do it.
That's for government documents. I'm not doing it, it's free, you're right there.
Yeah.
You might as well check that out.
Yeah, we have our own registrar, and the registrar is a user of the campus registrar system, which is SIS, the banner database. But the way that all of this stuff originates is they're an applicant within from LSAC. So it all starts in ACES 2. I have to do the batch download, say, as soon as you've got files that are completed, let me know when admissions is really kicking into gear. I'll go do reports out of ACES 2. It's not really entirely manual. I've got reports already set up and some processes that push the file to the right format. But then I have to physically load the file up to Banner, run a batch process on it, and then it loads the students. So all that data does get into Banner, the campus registrar system, but it comes from us. Oh, okay. What's your situation?
So that's active main
Uh-huh.
and it has to be fixed.
Sure. Sure.
We have FTP on the server.
Yes.
It's easier to server, so you got like, here's the cylinder.
Oh my.
They were it's not secure before, and we said, hey, it's pretty insecure. We have the social security number, we're just sending it to their text, so they're answering. No problem, just tell them to us, and then you can secure a copy of the terminal shell.
Yeah. Create your own secure FTP server, and then log into us, and then FTP from yourself. That's the only way to do secure.
When I inherited my
To get a degree
Yeah.
it was just
Right. Yeah. Good.
That's the only way I think that's
Do it yourself. Yeah, you can't make them change their ways necessarily.
But, I mean, at some point, you're having a problem just getting back in with them. I mean, our relationship's gotten better, but at some point, they were saying you can't have access to them.
Oh yeah, and then
Yeah, that's what it's already. Like, you can take our data and tell me I can't have access, and I won't give it to you.
the data that you put in the bank.
yeah, they wouldn't give us access to it. We had to scream, kick and scream to get it. It's the underpinning of everything we do now.
And they've changed some certificates on the NTP
we moved to ACES too.
Uh-huh.
And I have to rely on them, and I still haven't heard back from them, and everything's still going through on these two pretty drastic changes.
Mm.
Because I can't go see it. So it's kind of like,
Wow.
but I mean, to me, my philosophy as just a follow-on to the director or doing anything, it's not our bad. If they need it, we send it to them, if there's one, they can come to us.
Mhm.
And after I proactively try to pursue that, I'm fine just throwing my hands up and saying, this is across the house. And if they give you guys access to it.
Finally,
After we screened.
I had to, Nick think about it, they commented, because, listen, we need to provide these services,